turn now to the major news from today, and it was that the Republic of Ireland's Euro 2020 playoff semi-final will be played behind closed doors in Bratislava on the 26th of this month. That is on the direction of the Slovakian government. All sporting activities in the country have been suspended for the next 2 weeks, but they've decided to not allow fans attend the playoff, which takes place 2 days after their sports ban ends. As of today, and this was earlier on today, there were 7 positive cases of COVID-19 in Slovakia, and as of 6 o'clock this evening, there are 34 cases confirmed in this country. And incidentally, yesterday we ran a poll on the RT Soccer Twitter account. It was linked to this topic, where we asked for your opinion on the playing of this fixture. It seems that the majority of you agree with the decision of the Slovakian government. 60% of you were in favour of the decision that has been reached. OK, well, I suppose, Kevin, are you in favour of this decision that has been reached behind closed doors?
Yeah, I think it's a sensible decision. It's what all sporting organisations seem to be coming to. You know, the rugby's been cancelled. Big games are getting cancelled all over Europe. The Italian league is shutting down totally. So I think this is the minimum we could expect. Whether, you know, initially I thought this could be good for Ireland, as in behind closed doors, taking the fan support away. But the more I've thought about it, the more Irish fans on the road are fantastic. You really do get a boost from it. We make more noise most of the time than the home fans. It's a big occasion for Irish fans. Love to journey, love to go. A massive playoff game like that. You know, I think as an away team, as a player, you would get something from that. I think us missing that atmosphere is actually more. The more I think about it, the more I think it's a negative for us.
Do you think it helps the Republic of Ireland not having fans there on the night? It's supposed to favour Slovakia. They got home advantage because, well, technically they did better than us in the qualifiers.
Playing, home advantage is, by definition an advantage. But if you're going to a ground which is hostile because of the number of people and the behaviour of people there, then having no people there obviously negates that advantage completely. The importance of getting this game played is obvious. If it's a case of if this game isn't played, like, can you imagine the headache that causes? Like, in the context of trying to arrange a tournament that begins on the 11th of June and not knowing yet who's going to take part in the tournament. So an interruption in terms of cancellations or postponements to these fixtures, the knock-on effect of that is, God knows what that looked like. But like, I know friends of mine who booked flights a while ago, they're now going to lose money. And all this, of course, is in the context of, we're talking about the ramifications of sporting advantage or otherwise. There's way more serious issues to discuss in relation to this issue, but this is a football show, so we'll talk about the football bit. It's going to be an odd scenario looking at a game of such significance with nobody watching it. I've been to loads of games, we've played in games where there's nobody there, but that's because it's a reserve game or a youth game. This is a massive game with nobody watching, so they'll have to turn down the microphones because you hear everything that's said on a pitch. And
we don't need to hear
unless
everything.
Things have changed massively since I played, what's said on the pitch between players and managers isn't admissible on air.
Because Lisa, I suppose, look, a lot of people are speculating about, OK, well, we now have a plan as of tonight for the playoff game. We know it's behind closed doors. This situation is changing so rapidly. We don't know what things will look like on the 26th of the month. And, like, the Euros are very seriously in doubt. 12 different cities all across Europe, inside, outside the EU, all of that stuff as far away as Baku. So we just don't know how the summer looks in sporting terms.
No, and I suppose the fact that the games are in so many different locations, it's a logistical nightmare for people who are tasked with trying to contain the virus and its impact on a tournament. But I think, the key thing for UEFA really at the moment is to get the playoff games played. At least if the playoff games are actually played, then it gives them a chance of enabling, if things pass or if things have quelled and if the numbers have dropped, then if it is a situation that it passes in 2 to 3 months, that there is the option then for the tournament to go ahead, then it's really crucial for them to get those playoff games played as soon as possible. And if that means them being played behind closed doors, then that's the best option, and probably logistically for the 4 teams involved as well, to make sure that they have the option to plan and get themselves organised if they're going to the tournament.
There's another... We actually have reports, I'm just hearing now in the last couple of minutes, in Italy, that UEFA are considering suspending Euro 2020 for a year, postponing it for a year, till summer 2021. Like the other factor, Slovakia, a lot of their players are based in Italy. So how do you get them out?
The announcement that they might
suspend the whole thing. Forget playoffs, but
for 12 months.
It's only speculation now. That's just
if they
speculation
were to do
in
that,
Italy.
I suppose one of the things straight away I'm thinking of is they're going up against the FIFA Club World Cup.
And
they're also going up against
Women's European
Euro
Championships as
which
well.
is due to take place next summer, which will involve a lot of the same group of players. I don't know logistically how you do that. But also, just to bring it closer to home for a moment, big clubs can absorb the financial hit of not selling tickets for certain matches. If League of Ireland fixtures, if the appropriate measure in the next few weeks is to play some games behind closed doors, I just know from how those clubs operate and how reliant they are on ticket revenue to keep going. I don't know if it's feasible to expect all the League of Ireland clubs to be able to afford to meet all their contract obligations and other costs of running a business if you remove pretty much their only revenue source by denying them the chance to sell tickets. I mean, a lot of them, their revenue will be in from season tickets earlier in the season, but a hell of a lot of clubs won't have that amount of season tickets. So it's a real concern, and I would hope that the FAI or whoever it is, that they're already starting to consider these. They're making contingency plans. So they're not reacting to things that you can actually foresee now, that certain supports are in place to deal with this. This hasn't been a feature before. No one knows what this is going to go like, but there are a variety of ways it can go. One of them is businesses all over the country will be affected, and the FAI's jurisdiction is League of Ireland clubs, so they need to be sure that they're properly prepared to support in whatever way they can.
And you see, Kevin, reading some comments on the 42.ie from the Fianna Fáil spokesperson on sport. This is earlier on today, Mark McSharry. He says there's no option for the government to take drastic action. I know it's draconian and hugely frustrating for all of us who love sport, but he said I'd rather be accused of overreacting than not acting at all. He wants all sport closed for a month.
Yeah, well, when you hear what's coming out of Italy and how quickly that's escalated in the space, 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, they were where we are now. So, we're not experts. We don't know. It's hard for us to comment on what's going to happen. But exactly as he said, it'd be better to be overcautious in this case. People's lives are at risk. It's something that has to be taken really seriously. And if we can stem that now, we're put out. All of us, everyone involved in the industry is put out. But if games have to be cancelled, so be it for a month. The financial side of it, figure it out. That's whoever's involved, put their heads together and come up with some sort of solution. But if it's people's lives, health is more important than anything else.
And as well, as we mentioned, that speculation coming from Italy about possible postponement of the European Championships, we're also being told now that it has been confirmed that an unnamed player at Linfield Football Club in Belfast has tested positive for COVID-19. That's just in the last couple of minutes. There are more details on the RTE website. And Lisa, with your working at Chelsea, I spoke to a number of other, speaking to some GA players today, and for any team environment, the nightmare scenario in a sporting sense, and we're talking about people at home and we know how serious that is, but in a sporting sense, if somebody within the group tests positive or is exposed to somebody who has contracted COVID-19, that changes the dynamic massively for a very large group of people.
It completely changes the dynamic, and even at the clubs, measures would have been taken a couple of weeks ago where restricted movement would have been between different buildings and different locations within the club. But the key thing there was to try and prevent anybody in the first team environment or any environment really getting it, because once you can play games behind closed doors to an extent, but once it comes into contact with players and coaches, it's a different animal altogether, because the close contact that players have on the pitch, they're banning handshakes, but when players score goals, they're jumping around and celebrating, and then you have all that close contact in the dressing room, shower cubicles. It is a very close contact environment. Most clubs at the highest level, players would have their own individual bottles to drink from, and so from that perspective, but you don't get that all the time. And if they come off at half time or during the game, they're drinking out of different bottles. It's almost impossible to contain it in that sense. So I think once it goes into the players or the first team or the team environment, that's when you have to knock it on the head and ride out.
Just to Thanks, Lisa. Just to reiterate that the story about Euro 2020 and the postponement, it's come from Italy. It is just speculation, but we thought we'd bring it to you. You can read more about the Linfield story on rte.ie. And there were other lines today, which again just shows how fluid this situation is. As we mentioned at the top, people's health is the number one priority. We're just talking about sport here, but Wolves have asked UEFA to postpone their Europa League clash with Olympiacos in Athens on Thursday. The owner of Olympiacos, who is also the owner of Nottingham Forest, has tested positive for COVID-19, and Pep Guardiola said authorities should suspend football rather than play behind closed doors. They have a big match tomorrow night in the Premier League.